at this wonderful conference. As I heard, it's completely organized by the doctoral students. So it's such a amazing opportunity for everyone to interact. So in this paper, we study the impact of ChatGPT outage on stock trading activities. So the goal of our paper is to study the effects of generative AI adoption in capital markets. So we want to know whether generative AI adoption facilitates investor trading. So there are two main research questions in this paper. So first one, we want to understand the extent to which investors rely on generative AI for professional tasks. Okay, so put in different words. So we want to understand whether there remains a significant number of investors who use ChatGPT in a way that influence their trading decisions. And a second research question in this paper is we want to study if investors do rely on ChatGPT for professional tasks, how would this affect, for example, stock price informativeness? So there are three motivations to study these two questions. So the first one, we all know about ChatGPT, right? So it has witnessed a tremendous rising popularities adoption among a wide range of people. It was launched in November 30, 2022, and has achieved magical success, right? So within 2 months, it has reached about 100 million users. And this is a record that cannot beat by any other apps in human history. I'm sure after 2 years, most of us have experimented with ChatGPT, right? And we all have our own different uses of ChatGPT. And what about that for investors? So on the investing side, there has been quite a lot of discussions on the media, on this financial advisory platform, how investors can benefit from using ChatGPT. So this is the first one is an article from the Economic Times. So they talk about how ChatGPT can empower stock market research. So you can see those are the exact words coming from this article. So ChatGPT would mean having an expert on your hands to help you make sense of the latest financial news and data. And you can simply enter a company's ticker symbol or name, and ChatGPT can provide you with insights into the company's business model and economic structure, etc. So in essence, you can use ChatGPT as a sort of like alternative information search tool, right? So you can use it to retrieve a lot of information about a stock, about a market, about industry, etc. So this type of potential has also been substantiated, right, by some of these big names in the industry, like the founder of Citadel. So Ken Griffin talk about the potential of ChatGPT. So everything from helping their developers write better code to translating software between language to analyze various types of information that they analyze in the ordinary course of business. All right, so this gives some ideas about how investors they might benefit from using ChatGPT. And some of this additional analysis we provided, they were not included in this paper. So they in the version they were sent to all of you. So these are some additional analysis we have been doing. So we have provided more comprehensive analysis of how investors might use ChatGPT based on our review of anecdotal evidence. All right. So we classify them into 3 broad categories. The first one is about information acquisition. So I think this is quite self-evident to everyone. Like you can retrieve information on the firm level, for example, about a company's business model, risk profile, stock performance, financial ratios, etc. You can also use it to, for example, understand the recent earnings news from Apple, from Microsoft, from Meta, etc. And you can also use it to summarize the regulatory filings to save you some time to go through all these details in this usually long filings. And you can also use it to retrieve, for example, like industry level information to understand specialized industry concepts, summarize industry policies, identify stocks related to a specific theme, etc. Right? And the end, you can also use to understand like macro level information, like economic conditions, GDP, unemployment rates, or the recent news coming from the Federal Open Market Committee, or the Federal Reserve Bank. Okay, so this is quite self-evident, and we actually collected a lot of examples coming from this category about information acquisition, information search about companies. In addition to that, we also observed quite a lot of uses on this more towards the second half of this investment stage side. Okay, so information integration. So with information just on your hand, you also need to understand the implications, the value implications, right? So that can help you with this trading and investing decisions. And ChatGPT can also be relevant here. For example, it can help you to synthesize information from multiple sources. It can also help you analyze the sentiment of news or analyze share price trends to help you with some technical analysis. It can also help you forecast, for example, like future sales based on historical revenue streams, etc. Okay, so this is the second category about using ChatGPT to process the information, understand the value implications, and which could be relevant for your trading decisions. The last category we identify is more about the routine tasks. All right, so you might see you might find that it's also quite relevant, right? When you use ChatGPT for your work, you can not only use it for your research, you can also use it for some of this daily administrative tasks. For example, like writing emails, right? Drafting documents, checking some of these papers, and then writing and testing code. So those routine tasks, if they can help investors perform them more efficiently, this can also help investors free up their time available for trading. Okay, so this is the third categories we identify. So we conduct a rather comprehensive analysis about how investors could benefit from using ChatGPT. So ranging from, for example, information acquisition, integration, and also non-trading related routine tasks. So given the set of anecdotal evidence, perhaps you are going to ask me like, oh, this is quite self-evident, right? So maybe investors can use it for various places, and why do we need to study as well, right? I mean, conduct another empirical analysis. For sure, there's some potential pushback. I mean, in the professional industry, from practitioners regarding the use of ChatGPT in the workplace. Okay, so we provide some early evidence of in shortly after the release of ChatGPT around the beginning of 2023, so from February to August. And back then, there has been still quite a lot of debate, right, about whether to use ChatGPT in the workplace. For example, this article from Bloomberg, it talked about some of the first a group of traders who experimented with ChatGPT, and they quickly realized that there's some limitations, right? For example, an oil trader used a version of ChatGPT to write a research note on the outlook of crude oil. It reads well, but she said the information could be out of date. Okay, so those information had to be manually checked and fixed. In addition to that, a bond trader in mainland China, they wrote routine reports on policy analysis using like generative AI to save time, but part of which she need to spend another more time, like carefully fact checking. So one of the primary concerns about using ChatGPT, I mean, sure, we all have similar experience, is that hallucination problem, right? So those generative AI models, this problem still remains nowadays, even after 2 years of progress, right? Hallucination. So they might just come up with some information and they'll consider it as a factor and present it to you like it's true. Okay, so this is one of the key concerns about adopting generative AI in practice. The second key concern would be data privacy issue. So when you, for example, allow your employees to use ChatGPT, like investors, right? So from time to time, you might need to interact with ChatGPT and share some of the information, like private information coming from your company. For example, maybe your portfolio strategy, your key private communication with clients, etc. So those private information, they will be under the risk of being leaked or maybe shared by ChatGPT or some third other party. So this happens actually in one of the outage when some other people's information was shared to a different person. So this represents the second concern in practice that people are worried about using ChatGPT when they, for example, upload this private documents or this information about their company, about their business. They might result in data leakage. So these are the two primary concerns among the industry. And so as you can see, some of the banks back in 2023, they have banned the usage of this ChatGPT in their workplace. Okay, so especially like Bank of America, Citigroup, Deutsche Banks, Goldman Sachs, etc. The last motivation for this is like a lot of companies, they're still considering about this policies on ChatGPT use. Okay, so some of these concerns that raised about from this human resource department is that they notice the information provided to AI chatbot that doesn't remain confidential, or maybe this information is not reliable. and they are still finalizing some of the guidance, coming out with the policies. So we believe that a timely empirical analysis about the real world impact of GenAI adoption in the investment industry could provide some of this real insights. And among putting this anecdotal evidence aside, right? So this mixed evidence about investors' reliance on ChatGPT for their professional tasks. So there has been some voice coming from regulators as well. For example, the President Biden administration, for the first time, they recognize generative AI, artificial intelligence, as a risk to financial system. So there could be a vulnerable place for the system because, for example, the issues we talk about. In addition to that, if you think about investors' reliance on a generative AI model, and right now the most popular one will be OpenAI's ChatGPT. And there have been a few candidates or competitors out there. But even with that, so if investors only rely on one or a few AI models, so in a case when there could be outage or maybe some algorithm issues with those models, they may actually introduce risk to the financial stability. Okay, so an understanding of this average effect, how investors' reliance on generative AI models, and how they could impact the financial markets could also provide some insights and guidance to the regulators' concerns. So given these motivations, we start analysis. Two research questions I mentioned in the beginning. So the first one is to understand the extent to which investors rely on ChatGPT for their professional tasks. Okay, so to operationalize it, we conduct our empirical tests to understand how trading activity changed during ChatGPT outages. Because we think this is a rather important and useful setting because we cannot observe investors' real adoption, right? So as empiricists, we will not be able to observe whether investors adopt ChatGPT for one stock versus another stock. So this leaves no room for us to conduct some cross-sectional tests if we cannot not observe the intensity of adoption across different investors, across different stocks. So because of that, we rely on this setting, ChatGPT outage. So when ChatGPT is not available to all of the users, so including investors, so this could serve as a plausibly exogenous shock in terms of the availability of ChatGPT to investors. So then we want to understand how this ChatGPT outage could affect trading activities, and we mostly focus on trading volume. Okay, so the theory on trading volume posits assume that trading usually arises when investors they hold different beliefs about the value of the underlying assets. For example, maybe you believe that Apple is a good buy now, and I believe this earnings is now so impressive, so I decide to sell. So then trading arises, right? So when you hold different beliefs. And this type of trading usually also arises when we get some information to update our price, right? So arrival information updates investors' belief and induce trading. And we think ChatGPT plays an important role, as we showed before, in assisting your information processing task, right? So this might provide you with more information to help you update your belief about this value implication of a stock, and this could encourage trading activities among all of us. And so then, given this argument, during the outage of ChatGPT, they might disrupt investors' workflows and reduce their capacity to carry out trading-related activities. So we will expect a decrease in trading volume during ChatGPT outage. If investors do rely on ChatGPT for professional tasks, they ultimately lead to the trading outcomes. Okay, but whether this collective effect sizable is observable depends on two conditions. So it's a joint test of these two conditions. So whether investor adoption of ChatGPT is quite prevalent. Okay. In addition to that, it's also depending on the degree of ChatGPT integration into trading-related activities. So how much integration there has been in terms of the ChatGPT usage and then investors' trading decisions. So I believe it represents an empirical question to understand the effect. So it depends on the prevalence of investor adoption of ChatGPT and the degree of ChatGPT integration into trading-related tasks. All right. So this is our first research question and how we try to address it in an empirical way. Any questions so far regarding this paper? Anything? If not, then I'm going to introduce our setting. Okay, so our setting, we focused on ChatGPT outage. So this is a quite early paper we worked on around the end of 2023. So by then, we collected the ChatGPT outage from February to August in 2023. So there are 8 major outage in total. So major outage means those outage, they are quite severe and they result in this inaccessibility. I mean, during outage, ChatGPT was not accessible to a majority of the users. Okay, so these are the most serious and severe outage that we focused on from February to August 2023. In terms of how we identify those outage, okay, so we identify this outage from 2 primary data sources. The first data source comes from OpenAI. The OpenAI maintains a official records of the uptime of ChatGPT's uptime. Okay, so here is an example. So you can see sometimes you might experience, I mean, you might encounter this message as well during when you use ChatGPT, like the system is a bit busy that you cannot get your response, right? So when the system is down, this could affect everyone. Some of us, we also rely on ChatGPT, for example, to polish our assignment, our paper, and then we have to do it, for example, in this old-fashioned way without the help of ChatGPT. Okay, so this is one of the examples when ChatGPT was down and how it could affect a lot of people's use it. And regarding how we collect this information, so on the right-hand side, this is a screenshot of this uptime records coming from OpenAI. So they provide detailed documents about like the start time of the investigation, how they keep monitoring this effect, and when the time and when this issue has been fully resolved. Okay, so there are 2 key timings here. Investigation, so you can see, for example, in this case, is Eastern time, 2:41 in the afternoon. Okay, so this is the start time of the investigation. And then you can see when the issue was fully resolved, this about 3 o'clock. So this outage, based on the record here, lasts for about 40 minutes. Okay, so this is the records coming from OpenAI, and it's also the primary approach that we use in the paper, this version of this current paper version that we sent to everyone. But we recognize a potential issue about the start time of this investigation because we, based on our reading and review of anecdotal evidence, OpenAI usually lag the actual onset of this outage, right? So it usually took some time for OpenAI to realize there's a problem and then they start investigating it. So that's why we supplement this additional data with like direct user reports from down detector. So to better identify the start time of the outage. Okay, so this is a secondary resource we rely on to better identify the start time of the outage because the investigation start reported by OpenAI could lag the outage's actual start time. For example, in the previous case, based on the user reports, we identified that in outage actually starts as early as from 1 p.m. instead of this 2:41. Okay, so combining both sources, so we start with OpenAI's official records to identify the major outage. And then we try to refine the start time by using direct user reports from down detected. So this is important because we will conduct a dynamic analysis to understand how the effect kicks in right after the start of the outage. Okay, so this is how we identify the start time and ending time of outage from ChatGPT. And the reason why we use ChatGPT, as I discussed earlier, is that it provides an observable setting where we know the investor's access to ChatGPT has been deprived or has been removed, okay, during ChatGPT outage. And there are some additional benefits I want to go over here. For example, ChatGPT outage, they are usually due to like software issues about like their database, malfunction, etc. Although we cannot identify all of them, but based on those, we can identify majority of them a result of this malfunctions in their softwares. And this is unlikely to be driven by solely by investors' trading activity or trading use. Okay, so this reduces the concern of the potential confounding factors like market-wide conditions or reverse causality, or just because the investors intense use might actually create such an outage for ChatGPT. Okay, so this is the first benefit. In addition to that, the outage we identify, so they span across different days and times of the day, so have a wide range of different periods. So this reduces the concern that the findings are driven some specific time or day specific factors. In addition to that, we also conducted some additional research to make sure those outages, they do not overlap with the outage of other major services like cloud services, internet services, phone services. They may also disrupt investors' professional tasks. Okay, so this also reduces the concern with confounding factors. So these are some of the additional identification benefits associated with our setting. Now to get into the detail how we construct our sample and how we design our research. So for our treatment sample, includes all the ChatGPT outage periods. And we use 5-minute intervals. So we aggregate trading volume, trading activities into every 5-minute intervals. And then we match this outage periods, all the intervals in the outage periods, with some control sample. So the control sample includes all the same periods of the previous 5 trading days. So you can see an illustration right here. Okay, so we have this outage date is on June 30th from 1:10 to about 3:14 or 3:20. So we have all these 5-minute intervals during outage. We match them with all the same periods in the previous 5 trading days. And then we compare trading volume in this outage periods against those in the control periods. Okay, so in total, we have about 2.6 million firm day 5-minute interval observations. And then our key variable of interest is this outage indicator. So during the outage period, the outage indicator is equal to 1. And then in previous 5 trading days, the control periods, the outage indicator is equal to 0. And this is our main regression, the model specification. So on the left-hand side, we have the trading volume outcome. So our key primary variable outcome. And then it represents share turnover. So number of shares traded divided by number of shares outstanding. So it's aggregated for each 5-minute interval for firm I on day T. And then on the right-hand side, our key variable of interest is outage. So as I illustrated before, it's an indicator that equals 1 if the 5-minute interval falls during the outage periods, and 0 if it's equal to 0 if it falls on the control periods. We also include a bunch of controls like specific to the stock and the periods like return overnight, past day return, past week return, price range, price level, market cap, etc. And we control for like firm fixed effect and then also the specific time interval fixed effects. I class the standard errors by firm and day. And this presents our main results. Okay, so using this model, the key variable of interest outage, we observe a negative and significant coefficient, right? So suggesting a significant decline in trading volume. And this represents about 5.6% of the average, the sample standard deviation. So this suggests, this indicates investors, a significant number of investors rely on ChatGPT for professional tasks. And because of that, during ChatGPT outage, their professional work has been disrupted, and we observe a decline in their trading volume activity. Okay, so this is the primary results we show in this paper. Trading volume declines during ChatGPT outage. And we showed our results pretty robust, including using, for example, alternative measures. Besides like turnover, we also just rely on the raw share count or trade count. And also show our results are robust to using like high dimensional fixed effect, also robust to using different control periods. So instead of just the past week, we also look at like past 2 weeks, past 3 weeks, and also we also look at like past 2 or 3 weeks, excluding the most recent one. And we also show like it's robust to dropping outliers or running a media regression and dropping 1, 2, or 3 shortest outage and alternative start time. So if we do not rely on, for example, doubt detector. So that's the results we show in the version we send out in the paper we sent to everyone. So the start time of OpenAI's investigation. And also showing the falsification test that if we just remove this, replace this treatment periods with the same periods of the previous trading day, we do not observe any effect. Okay, so this ensures the robustness of our main findings. And we also conduct some dynamic analysis. It's not included in the job that we send out to everyone because now we rely on a doubt detector to better identify the start time of an outage. So you can see there are three areas, three zones in here, right? Separated by two red dashed lines. So on the left-hand side is the pre-period, and then in the central area here, it represents the treatment period. And then after that is this a post-period after the end of the outage. Okay, so we perform this analysis separately for each 10-minute intervals to plot the coefficients right here and the confidence interval, 90% confidence interval. So you can see we do not observe any effects, right, in the pre-period. So there's not any significant impact on trading volume before the outage starts. And after the outage starts, we only observe significant effects. So beginning about 30 minutes, okay, so half an hour after the outage starts, and it lasts till the end of the outage. And then we see sort of some rebounds after the outage ends, but the effect's not significant, so it's quite noisy here. So you can see after the outage ends, we do not observe any significant difference in terms of the trading volume during this treatment post periods versus those in the control periods. Okay, so this dynamic effect might tell us something, right? So first, it confirms this assumption that in the pre and post periods, there's no difference in terms of the trading volume. In addition to that, so it shows how fast this effect manifests. Okay, so how fast the effect kicks in. So we do not observe an immediate decline. Instead, it takes about 30 minutes for us to observe this significant effect. So this is more consistent with ChatGPT assisting investors along this more intermediate steps that ultimately lead to the trading decisions. So it's not consistent with the ChatGPT being fully integrated, right, into their trading execution. Without ChatGPT, they cannot make any trades. Okay, so the disruption it will take some time for it to affect the trading decisions. So this is the two messages coming out from the dynamic analysis. So confirming this parallel trends assumption and showing that how fast the effect comes in. All right, so moving beyond this main analysis about how trading volume changes and the ChatGPT outage, we get into some of the cross-sectional analysis. So if ChatGPT has been used, for example, mainly for information processing, we expect the effect to be stronger during the periods when investors have a stronger demand for information processing. So to proxy for investors' demand for information processing, we rely on this arrival of corporate news. Okay, so fresh news coming from the company or maybe from analysts, or the media, etc. So we conduct analysis, cross-sectional analysis to interact this outage variable with a news indicator. So whether there's some firm-specific news, okay, and we observe the effect stronger. I mean, the decline in trading volume is more pronounced when during these periods when there's corporate news about the firm. All right, so this result is quite consistent with investors relying on ChatGPT to process, for example, firm information and to process news, and that's quite relevant for their trading decisions. In addition to that, we also try to understand which investor group they might benefit more from using ChatGPT. All right, so before running the test, I mean, quite different people, I mean, different audience, they might have different conjectures. So some of us believe that professional investors might benefit from using ChatGPT more because professional investors, a majority of them, they trade more on information, right? So they trade more information. They are more sophisticated. In addition to that, some of the field evidence are using some settings like from China's like mobile payment system, and they have more like granular data. So they show that investors with greater financial literacy, they benefit more from like using GAI investment consultants. So they can ask the right question, right? And or they can better utilize the information to guide their investment decisions. So this is from one side of the discussion. So some of them believe like professional investors, they can benefit more from using ChatGPT. On the other hand, so ChatGPT is very famous for its wide accessibility, right? So it provides you with a lot of advanced functions in just one tool, and it's widely accessible to everyone. So such a feature could be to make it more useful for a lot like retail investors. Because we know retail investors like you and me, we sometimes lack a lot of information resources like as professional investors do, right? We are also less equipped with all this processing information like skill sets, all these apps and everything. So the rollout or release of ChatGPT, the availability of ChatGPT might actually benefit like retail investors more. Okay, so as NT, we do not know like which investor group might benefit more from using ChatGPT, and this question, the answer to this question could also have implications for like, for example, information asymmetry among investors. So to provide some early evidence on these questions, we first decompose the trading volume outcome into retail versus non-retail trading volume. Okay, so we quantify and identify retail trading volume following the methodology developed by Boehmer et al. 2021. So we separate out the trading volume into retail one versus non-retail ones, and so we compare the magnitude against their own standard deviation. Okay, so we compare the magnitude because we know retail trading volume level, the magnitude at the average level should be different from non-retail trading volume. So we grab these two coefficient estimates, we compare them against this standard deviation and the relative effects we presented on the bottom here, and we test the difference and we observe that the effect is greater for non-retail trading volume than for retail trading volume. All right, so based on the result, it seems like the results are more consistent with the non-retail investors or professional investors. They might be more reliant on using ChatGPT to guide their trading decisions. Okay, and then we also analyze this level of information asymmetry during ChatGPT outage. So if professional investors benefit more from using ChatGPT, right? So this might widen their information advantage over others. So consistent with this explanation, we found that during ChatGPT outage, we observed a significant decline in the level of information asymmetry, the proxy for information asymmetry, the bit-R spreads. Okay, so in other words, information asymmetry is higher when ChatGPT is up running. Okay, so this evidence we have now is more consistent with the professional investors benefiting more from using ChatGPT, and the availability of ChatGPT could actually widen the information advantage over others. All right, so this is the second set of analysis we conduct to understand which investor type, I mean retail versus non-retail investors, who might benefit more from using ChatGPT. In addition to that, we also zoom in a bit more, right? So we know now professional investors or institutional investors, they might benefit more from using ChatGPT. But which type of investors might drive our findings here, right? So we know from Boucher et al., Boucher's paper, that there are three types of professional investors categorized by Boucher, right? So transient investors, dedicated investors, and indexer. Okay, so transient investors, they tend to be those investors who make fast trading decisions on a short horizon. Okay, but dedicated investors, they barely like reshuffle their portfolio like maybe within a week or within a month. They are long-term holders of a stock, right? So they're dedicated and they invest in the company's corporate governance, etc. So they are like long-term fundamental investors. And then indexers, they are more like passive index fund holders. So we try to decompose a firm's investor base, right, along the three dimensions. Of course, we cannot do it like just in the same way as we did for the retail versus non-retail trading volume, because we cannot differentiate like the trades, right? Whether the trades come from transient investors, dedicated investors, or indexers. Because from the tech data, we're not able to identify the specific investors who make those trades. Okay, so because of this limitation, we did this test in a different way, in a cross-sectional way. So we grab all this investor ownership data for each company for each quarter, and then we create three like cross-sectional variables based on their specific category of ownership, like transient investor ownership, dedicated ones, indexed one. And we do the partition. Okay, so we see the effect stronger for firms that are owned by more transient investors. So in a sense, this trading volume, the disruptive effect of ChatGPT outage on investors' trading activities is more pronounced for those investors who might depend on the tool for real-time information processing and then fast trading decisions. Okay, so this provides some additional layer to understand the disruptive effect. Okay, so for those investors who depend on information processing tool to make fast trading decisions, the activity could be more affected. All right, any questions so far about the analysis, everything?
Hello, Professor.
Okay.
I see that you mainly focus on the usage of ChatGPT on the trading volume, the informativeness. I'm guessing that due to the data availability, so that it's impossible to track if the usage of ChatGPT could actually lead to a higher alpha. Is that the case?
Yeah, so you're saying like not just about trades, informed trades, right? It's also about whether the trades are more profitable or not, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think there will be an interesting study. So in our setting, we are not able to identify, like, for example, the trades for investors, how long they hold the stocks and when do they sell the stocks. So we are not able to check all the stocks like, for a long horizon because we rely on the tech data. Every trade is anonymous. But I think if you want to understand this question, we can perhaps, for example, look at like mutual fund portfolios, right? Or maybe hedge funds portfolios. And we also need to identify, for example, maybe different fund managers, they might rely on ChatGPT differently. So I believe there's some paper they come up with some proxies, maybe based on the disclosure, to proxy for the integration of ChatGPT into their investment strategy and see how it could affect, for example, maybe fund performance. Yeah, so I would say if you have some better data, for example, the real adoption of ChatGPT, and then identify the heterogeneity across different mutual fund managers, and then you can evaluate how this could affect, for example, their fund performance. Yeah, but in this setting, it's very difficult to see the profitability of the trades.
I see, thank you. Because in the background, you mentioned a lot about like ChatGPT's inability to update the real details. Like the people, they spend a lot of time fact checking, and you also mentioned that I know there are different type of investors who may use the tools to their and the effect depends on their own ability to understand how to use a tool. So this setting kind of arouses a lot of questions in my head, but somehow in the downstream empirical analysis, it seems that we were unable to find out the specific impact.
Oh, you're correct. So you're saying like the effectiveness of using ChatGPT for investment decisions, right? So in this first half, we focus on the extent to which like investors integrate ChatGPT into their trading activities. But we also provide some additional evidence in the second half to understand like how this ChatGPT adoption affects like stock price informativeness. So I would say this in another way could answer some of your questions about whether on average the ChatGPT creates some benefit or cost to investors' trading decisions, right? So we will look at in the short term, like the trade's impacts. So it's not directional, it's more about like whether this trade generates greater impacts in the market. So we would presume that a trade with greater market impacts could be more meaningful, right? To contain more information. So it's not directional, but it's more about whether this trade contains information. In addition to that, we also look into like long run analysis afterwards to understand how the adoption could affect like long run stock price informativeness. So this could, in another way, could also answer your questions. But I would say if you want to get deeper into this idea, then some of the detailed data records about like different mutual fund managers, their adoption of ChatGPT and their portfolios, and you can check their portfolio, their rebalance, and you can model their alpha, their return. So there will be more direct evidence. Okay.
I see.
All right. Thank you. It's a very good question. Any other questions I have?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Just a comment. I think your idea is very interesting and etc. The only thing I would suggest for you to think about is, you know, outages is not only the big outages. There is a lot of problem. You know, the CPU demand on certain queries is very intense. And it's very common that there are local outages or reduction because Xiaomei asked some difficult question and it has big demand. There is a book that you might want to have a look. It's called Empire of AI. And this is basically the story of AI, and it talks a little bit about the technical challenges that AI. The other part of it is more kind of blah, blah, blah. So I wouldn't be too interested. It's by a woman called Karen Hao, Hao. Okay, it's just for something you to think. I don't think that's even if there are these outages, you picking up big effects, and that's okay. But I think that's something you need to think a little bit about.
Yeah, I agree. So I think you raised really good points about this. They exist like a different outage with like of different severity degree, right? Some of the outage could be more at a local level, and some of the outage could be at a national or whole world level. And this outage we focus on are major ones. But for those at smaller outage, they could also have this effect. They can be also captured as well. So this is actually consistent with what we observe in this real raw data source. There are actually quite a lot of outages, but their degree, their severity ranges from different levels. So some of the outages might just relate to, for example, like login. So you cannot log in, but you can still get the answer if you already logged in before the outage. Or some of this outage could relate to this how fast you can get a response. So all of these different outages, they range in different severity and different issues, and they could be also meaningful to study as well. And this paper, we also study another type of outage, specifically related to like API. So how the API is just like the application like interface that you can use to integrate to your computer program directly, so that computer programs can use ChatGPT. So I'm going to show you later like how this could affect, for example, like algorithm trading volume right there. So I agree with you. This is a very interesting setting. It could cover a lot of different outage, and it could also have their own impacts differently.
Yeah, but meaning it's good you mentioned the API. That was the other thing I would mention. Over this period, they progressively issued a whole set of additional services, tracking, APIs, and etc. And that might have an effect on your data. And you might be able to normalize that by just looking at change in volumes.
You're right. So you are saying the service might be updated, and also maybe the user base also is extended a lot. Yeah, so they could also introduce some of the heterogeneity there. So in this paper, so far we look at only outage between like February to August 2023, and there has been like a lot of ongoing developments, right? So in terms of maybe ChatGPT's capabilities to connect with the internet, also the search function, and also how it reached to different user groups there. So I would say some follow-up studies in terms of the potential, for example, like feature updates or feature like progressive in changes, then they could also be meaningful to study.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for the suggestions, and I would try to read that paper to see there's some insights about, for example, how the technical issues could drive those outage. It's
a book, and it's full of other things that you don't want not to BS, but there are some very interesting information, and they are very critical of Sam Altman.
They'll be interesting to look into. Yeah, thank you so much. Any other questions here?
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm thinking about some like cross-country stuff. There are some countries like China, it is banned from using this ChatGPT. So in terms of this outages, maybe the investors from that area would not be affected. And is it possible to do some comparison or stuff, or would that make your paper too complicated?
You're correct. Actually, it's a concurrent paper. They look at like the ban of ChatGPT in Italy, right? So around like February or March of 2023. So Italy temporarily banned like the use of ChatGPT in their in the country. And then that paper, I think it's already like JE forthcoming. They look at this how that could affect like Alice forecasting activity. All right. So in a specific months period. Yeah. And so in here, we look into this US setting for this outage that we can identify the sharp outage so that we can better track the effects on the capital markets and stock trading activities there. So this short period of outage provides some of the identification benefits here. And any other questions here? Or I can move on with additional results here. All right, so I will talk more about this here. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hands or just speak up. So this is the test I mentioned before about looking at some of the other outage. Because this ChatGPT we focus on is the interactive one. So we human beings interact with this ChatGPT. But you all know like ChatGPT can also be quite powerful, right? If you can integrate it into your computer programming and it can help you automate like information processing in a unprecedented way. So in here, we also look into this outage specific to API, and then we observe a decrease in the algorithm trading volume. So we proxy for outlaw trading volume. So also this is consistent with some of the investors already integrated like ChatGPT API into their trading process. All right, so moving on to our second research question. This is also raised up by Xiaomei about how ChatGPT on average could affect like investors' informed trading or maybe trading profitability that we do not touch upon. But in here, we try to understand how does GenAI assisted trading affect stock price informativeness. Okay, so on the one hand, as we discussed earlier, like GenAI may assist investors' information processing activities and improve their price efficiency. But on the other hand, they might provide like outdated or inaccurate information that requires additional fact checking or additional work. They might reduce like price efficiency. In particular, ChatGPT is not good at like mathematical calculation, at least like in this sample period, right? So mathematical calculation could also be quite important for stock level, like different fundamental technical analysis. So this might also be a drawback of using ChatGPT for some of the investment analysis. To understand this, to investigate this second research question, we conduct two set of tests. So the first one is on the short term. So the same setting, ChatGPT outage, we try to investigate how two proxies for information content of trades changes during the outage. So we use a price impact and return variance. But the idea is that if the trades contains more information, then the market will respond more. So it will generate greater price impact. And then there will also be some greater variance of the returns, so variability of the price. All right, so this is a short-term test. And we also run some long-run analysis to use like the rollout ChatGPT as this exogenous shock, all right? And then to examine how this could affect like stock price informativeness, which I'm going to elaborate more later. In terms of the short-term trading impacts, so these are the two proxies: price impact, return variance. So we observe a significant decline in both proxies. So this is consistent with like ChatGPT helping with investors inform trading. So during the outage, the informativeness of the trades decreased. In terms of the long-run test, okay, so this is a long-run test. We want to examine how the rollout ChatGPT could affect price informativeness on a stock level. So, but the challenge is that as I discussed briefly with Xiaomei, it's very difficult to identify like which stock, right, is more subject to this GenAI assisted trading, because you cannot observe that, right? Investors, how they use ChatGPT, you don't know about it, right? So that's very difficult to create some of the meaningful cross-sectional variation. But even though we have this pre and post periods, right, before the rollout ChatGPT, after the rollout ChatGPT, we still need this cross-sectional variation, right, to identify the treatment effects and to construct a sort of like a DID analysis. So in order to achieve that, we have to rely on some of the proxies we have now. So given the ChatGPT outage, the observed trading volume decline during ChatGPT outage, this can be used sort of as a proxy for the potential use of ChatGPT among the specific investor groups for that specific stock. Okay, so for each outage event, we calculate the volume change for each firm. So during the outage period, there's an average trading volume. I subtract the average trading volume from in the control periods. So if this is a greater decline, all right, suggesting a stronger disruptive effect of ChatGPT outage, then this will indicate greater GenAI assisted trading intensity. Right, so you can see we multiply this difference with -1. So a greater number will indicate greater exposure to Gen AI assisted trading. All right, and we also create two different versions, either using the continuous variable or using the average decile ranks. So using these two proxies as Gen AI trading intensity, and we conduct this DID analysis. So we compare. So we adopt. The first thing we do is to perform a determinant analysis. Right. So we want to understand what might drive this variation in terms of the Gen AI assisted trading intensity. So based on our analysis here, so we consistent with our previous results. So we find that firms with greater institutional ownership, they have greater Gen AI assisted trading intensity, and also firms with like better information environment, like covered by more analysts. We also observe stronger Gen AI assisted trading intensity. So this is more consistent with our previous results, like more professional investors, more professional users, they might benefit more from using ChatGPT and adopt faster. Okay. In addition to this dimension, we also observe like tangibility, return volatility, right? So for firms with greater tangibility, in other sense, like less complex firms, okay? So more tangible assets, less complex firms, they have lower Gen AI assisted trading intensity. And for firms that experience greater return volatility, they tend to have like more complex information environment or business. They're also associated with greater exposure to Gen AI assisted trading. So after running this determinant analysis, we move on to this long run analysis. So in this long run analysis, we adopt this measure from Bayh 2016. So it's sort of a more recent version of like price informativeness. So on an outcome, so for the outcome is earnings, and for the independent variable, this is like market cap. So in another sense, like a stock price. So how will the current stock price reflect future earnings? Okay, so M divided by A, so this is like market cap scaled by assets, and how well this can predict future earnings, okay, in the next quarter. And this is interacted by the exposure. So exposure, the Gen AI assisted trading intensity, and then a post indicator, okay? So post indicator is equal to 1 after the rollout of ChatGPT.
Hi.
Yes, question.
Hey, two things very brief.
I don't think
question?
he's asking.
Okay. Oh, sure, yeah. Okay, so this is a long run DID analysis, and the evidence consistent with like the rollout of ChatGPT improve the price informativeness for firms that are subject to greater Gen AI assisted trading. All right, so to conclude, so we document a significant decline in stock trading volume during ChatGPT outage. And we find the effect stronger for firms with recent corporate news, and also stronger for professional investors, especially those transient investors who would depend on the tool for fast information processing and decision making. All right, so this answers the first question, that during ChatGPT outage, there could be a significant decline in terms of the trading volume. In addition to that, we also provide additional evidence consistent with ChatGPT facilitating like informed trading in the short run and improving long run stock price informativeness. And we provide this insights to practitioners and also regulators on the extent of investor usage and how this could affect their trading. So we document disruptive effects on trading during ChatGPT outage. And this should be quite relevant for them to assess whether, for example, using ChatGPT could pose some of this risk to financial instability. Should there be some of this negative incidences like ChatGPT outage? We also contribute to this emerging literature. Recent literature has been rather limited in terms of the real-world impacts, okay, of Gen AI adoption. We contribute to this emerging literature to understand how the adoption of Gen AI among investors could affect like trading volume and other market outcomes. But of course, there are quite a bunch of limitations and potential future research questions that might be worth investigating. Because we are like discussing among doctor students. Some of you might be really creative and also innovative, and might have some other ideas we can also share together. But there are quite a few limitations that of our paper. So first one is that we do not actually observe like how investors use Gen AI, right? So all the evidence is like circumstantial, right? Using ChatGPT outage as a setting to understand how this could affect trading volume. But in the future, like survey of field evidence could be it will be like important to understand like how investors utilize ChatGPT, right? So it could be used for non-trading routine tasks, or information processing tasks, or direct trading decisions. But which one is more important, for example, in explaining our findings? In addition to that, in terms of the second question we investigate, like which investor group they might benefit more from using ChatGPT, right? So I think a lot of like conventional wisdoms would suggest that ChatGPT might be benefiting retail investors more due to its wide accessibility. But we provide some suggested evidence that this might not be the case. Okay, so future research might adopt, for example, like as I discussed with Xiaomei, like how to utilize more direct measures of retail and institutional investor trading to better examine the level of GenAI adoption across different investor types. In addition to that, in terms of how like GenAI adoption might affect like trading informativeness or profitability, right? So the measure I just showed you is very endogenous in a sense. It could be subject to selection bias. Okay, so like field or lab experiments, this randomly grant like investors access to GenAI could help better identify the causal effects. In addition to that, our paper is very limited to the sample periods in 2023, right? But I mean, GenAI is a very fast-moving industry. Everything has been changed maybe after our sample periods. This rapid evolution of GenAI models and the rollout of the other competitors models, they might also they might create some of the different effects, right? In terms of how one single outage, a ChatGPT outage, could affect the market, right? So we remain like quite agnostic, right? Whether the disruptive effect of this ChatGPT outage intensify with wider adoption, or it might actually weaken as other alternative tools become available. Okay, so these are all the potential limitations of this paper, and some of the future research you may be interested in further investigating. All right, so this concludes my presentation, and I really appreciate all these questions, and I'm also open the floor to any more questions you have.
I have one question.
Yeah.
I know that the results is kind of how to say, time sensitive, because after a while a lot of byproducts are developed based on ChatGPT. So gradually many users, they may not heavily rely on ChatGPT. They may rely on other products like DeepSeek or like Gemini or stuff, especially when other products, they provide free trial period that is a lot longer than ChatGPT does. So I'm kind of curious how the time sensitiveness of this research is being addressed by you, or if you get some reviewer comments in terms of this, how would you address this problem?
Yeah,
Like where
I think that's a great question. Yeah, so it happens a lot when you work on some of those timely issues, right? So like people ask, yeah, things have changed a lot, things you have done this research, like how your findings will be relevant today, right? So I would agree with you, like, I mean, as I discussed in the last point, right? Expanding use cases and different models, how would the result change? So I would say it's very intriguing. I mean, to expand our sample to more recent periods and to see how the results change. The results might get stronger. The ChatGPT is adopted by more people, but it also weaken, right? As alternative tools become available. But given this current time frame we have in the research paper we have, right? So I would say our paper still carries like a lot of meanings to today's discussion. So because it's very, very early periods after the first release of ChatGPT, okay? So we provide this timely evidence in terms of the integration of ChatGPT into investors' trading decision. So I understand the competition dynamic and all the availability of products is different, right, nowadays. But this evidence is meaningful in the sense that in that period, ChatGPT is the sole dominating ones. It shows if you over rely on one single model, right, like ChatGPT, if you just have one choice, then it could create this type of disruptive effect on investors' trading decision. Okay, so this would direct us. I mean, at least we should have more models ready, or maybe as you say, like investors shouldn't concentrate in just one model, right? And you should be able to open to using multiple models. That this can reduce the potential impacts should one tool be is under outage. Okay, so I would say even the time has changed and the competition dynamic has changed, our results still carry meanings to guide like future direction and also regulatory policies. Because our results show that if you over rely on one model, when there's outage, there's significant impacts on this trading outcomes and trading volume and trading activities. So I would say even though this time has changed, our results are still meaningful to guide future policy decisions. And this is something that's constant for our paper. So for Yuxin, because we talk about like this paper involved a lot of large data set, because like tech data is really big and it's like millisecond transactions. And it's really big for a first year student to handle all the data sets. So because of that, we discussed maybe a better ways for Yuxin to highlight some of the key data sets in this paper and to talk about the disadvantage or the advantage of using that. So Yuxin is going to provide us with a brief overview of the data sets used in this paper. And I would say it's already a great work by first year students, because like completely replicating our paper with those data sets could be really challenging now. Thank you.